Hey, folks! Welcome to This Week in History with Mike and Will. I'm Mike.
And I'm Will.
And what we do is we find an event that happened in history at some point on this week. And then Will researches it, and he comes back here, and he tells me about it.
Yep.
He's got 1 hour to explain it to me.
Yep.
And his explaining to me explains to you.
Yep.
And that's how learning works.
Theoretically.
I don't know, watch it over and over until you learn, I guess.
Yeah.
So we are discussing today, we're doing some Chinese history, which means, of course, plenty of mispronunciations abound.
Yes.
So let's say the title, what it is, and then we'll start the timer. What are we doing today?
Today is Zhuo burns the city of Luoyang.
Zhuo burns the city of Luoyang. 1 hour, Will.
1 hour, I got this. Dance. Okay, Zhuo, he burns a city. That's the end. We're good to go.
All right. Join us next week. We'll be...
No. So, we're going to talk about Zhuo a little bit, explain who this guy was, why does this matter, and what the heck is Luoyang.
All right.
So first of all...
Kind of sounds like saying Don Ho. But
Don Ho. So Zhuo
yes.
Was born in the early... So this happened on the 9th of April, 190 AD. So this is a very long time ago.
Yes.
What's nice, though, is the Chinese government was very bureaucratic and wrote down everything.
Oh, good.
Everything. So all of our information for this comes from the Record of the Three Kingdoms, which is what it's called. It's one of the 24 histories. They call that. That's the kind of chronicle that it's called, the 24 histories.
Okay.
And it's written. I think this was the 4th one that was written, or the 3rd one that was written. But the earlier ones cover like their first Chinese dynasty. I can't remember what the name of the first dynasty was. This takes place at the end of the Han dynasty, which is the second imperial family that ran China. And then there's a space without Chinese emperors. And then there's the Jin dynasty starts after that.
And then Ming Dynasty.
That's one, Ming Dynasty eventually shows up.
Yes, that's when they had Ming the Merciless.
If you can
fought Flash Gordon.
He did. He was a warlord in space. Mm-hmm. Don't mess with Ming.
I don't know anything about Chinese history.
Well, that's why we're doing this.
Oh, good.
We haven't talked about China yet,
No,
right?
we've not. No.
We've talked about Japan a little bit, once, I think.
Yep.
And mostly Europe.
Mostly Europe.
We did one thing in the Western Hemisphere, which we didn't enjoy, because basically anything in the past 500 years in the Western Hemisphere involves genocide. So, not great.
Okay.
So we're going to avoid that. Today, though, does talk about some war, some violence, some stuff, and we got to figure out who this Zhuo is.
I do also want to say, even when I don't enjoy the history, I do enjoy this whole thing.
I do too. I try to find events that aren't such a depressing.
Well, we got to take the good and take the bad.
We have to.
All right.
So Zhuo began life. He was born in the early 140s. That's all they know, because he was not very important when he was born. He wasn't from a very wealthy family.
Just a fella.
But you had a bureaucratic system that you could get into in China that was beyond like most of the rest of the world, like at the time. Most people started life, in other countries. I mean, think about what Rome was like at the same time in 190 AD. There were slaves and peasants and stuff like that, and it was kind of this social hierarchy that was fixed. You were a noble or you were not.
Right.
So there is still nobility. There's nobility in China, but a big part of it is also working your way up through administration.
Okay.
And it does kind of parallel in some ways to what you could do in Rome, where being a soldier was a great path upwards. That was a great way to have social mobility. And China was massive, still massive, bigger now, but it was a massive country with a massive population. So there's always stuff to administer, right? So his first recorded job...
Now, if I may, though, you have you can work your way up through, not through fighting, but through administration stuff.
Yep.
You'd still need an education of some sort.
Yes.
What is the education
like? A lot of that is finding a teacher who's either willing to teach you, basically apprenticing under somebody who is already got the job.
Okay.
And then just kind of picking up things as you go along. I believe there were schools.
Okay.
They did have public schools. That was a thing. I don't know about their curriculum or how detailed it was, but reading and writing and arithmetic were pretty common taught, even for poor people. Like that was a big thing. Like having education was big.
Yeah, that was
a big thing.
The big question. Right.
They wanted to be able to write and read, and even the peasants want that. And as an emperor, that makes your life a lot easier if people can read your missives.
I guess you do want people to have some level of intelligence.
Yes.
Not too much.
Not too much. Not too much. Or to have just enough intelligence to learn and follow your orders, but not enough to question.
All right.
So, Dong Zhuo's first recorded bit in history was that he was a garrison commander in a border fortress. So he was in charge of a few soldiers in one of the provinces.
Okay.
He did some fighting. He was well respected. He was considered kind of this chivalrous guy. He was good to his troops.
Good guy, that Dong.
Yep, people like Dong. Yeah. And
5 minutes in.
Yeah, that's how long it took. I thought it was going to last longer.
Yeah, no.
Nope.
That was you.
That's my choice. I'm sorry.
I set you up.
Yeah, you did, and I can't miss that one. That's why we're a good team.
There we go.
So, that's how he started, and he started making a little bit of a name for himself. And he was ambitious, so he wanted to do more than just be a garrison commander. He wanted to be a field general or something like that. Eventually, he got invited to join the palace guard. That's a huge, prestigious position.
Yeah.
You know, you're close to the emperor, and then if you move up through that, that's kind of a launch pad to become something even bigger.
Okay.
And that's precisely what Dong Zhuo does. He eventually becomes the General of the Vanguard, was his fancy title, which was in 188, so just before our events. And that meant he was like in the forefront of the army. Like he was there.
Yeah.
The Vanguard is the chunk of the army that goes forward and engages the enemy first, and they usually take the most casualties, but they also dish out a lot of damage. And he was famous for that. He's also famous for being a very skilled horse archer.
Oh.
That's something that's in the records.
Were they doing? Is it the Mongols that could do where they can hold on and shoot with both hands?
A lot of different cultures started doing that.
Okay.
So the Chinese had horse archers.
We had talked about that.
Yeah, the most famous one was the Parthians. Had the Parthian shot.
Okay.
But the Huns did it, and the Mongols perfected it.
Okay.
They're the ones who perfected it. They actually used hunting techniques to destroy armies. We'll get into that eventually, just because
Sure.
we'll talk about... I'm trying to find a good event when the Khans start showing up.
Yeah.
But that's not until like the 12th century. Right. So they're a little bit beyond this.
So this is a skill, but it wasn't necessarily a skill that they
it wasn't super common.
Okay.
Some units of horse archers existed and they were utilized, but they were more of a skirmisher. You send them out, they shoot at the guys, and they run away.
Yeah.
It allows you to move and shoot and run, but it takes a lot of skill to do that, and a lot of resources and training and time.
Balance.
So it's just a lot easier to have a bunch of dudes with bows go pew 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 pew.
Yeah.
That's the sound arrows make.
That is. Pew pew pew.
Pew pew. So he's moving on up. During his time in the military, there was a very famous rebellion that's been talked about throughout, almost 2,000 years now. It was called the Yellow Turban Rebellion.
Ooh.
The Yellow Turbans were Taoists.
Okay.
Which that was their belief structure. They believed in... It was a little different than what the rest of China was believing at the time, because I think most of China was Buddhist.
Okay.
And they were a religious sect that got kind of violent. There was a crackdown on them, but their founder claimed that he could heal the sick, like with his hands. Kind of
good move.
Yep. And because he was claiming this, he started attracting lots of peasants to his banner. People were like, "Oh, this guy's awesome. We'd do anything for him," and he militarized them.
Do you think, by the way, that when people do that, like I can hear it, but there's a lot of it is a placebo effect.
Yes.
And lucking out.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, they were getting better already.
Yep.
Whew.
Yep.
Yeah.
Especially if you feed the crowd a little. You're like, that guy, it's your buddy.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Then you, come on up, I'll heal you. Because also, it's his word, and there's no recording devices.
Yep.
So, it just spreads by word of mouth. Oh, yeah, you can heal all the people.
Yeah.
And
I'm not sure why he's Elvis, but...
I don't either. It's the sideburns are making me turn into...
If you're just tuning in, I made Will do this for a role. He's playing a play I directed, so that's not his normal look.
I've not seen my chin in 4 years, and now it's making me nervous.
I did tell him I would shave in
Solidarity,
but then I just didn't.
And that's okay.
And he didn't make me.
You're the director. I can't make you do anything you don't want to do.
Back to China.
Back to China. Back to China. These sideburns. Anyway, so this Yellow Turban Rebellion is kind of it's an important event that happened in 182 AD, and it's important because it brings a lot of future famous people together on the same side.
Right.
Dong Zhuo is one of he's in the field with these guys. Another very famous guy who was kind of one of the top generals at the time is a man named Yuan Shao. And Yuan Shao does not get on well with Dong Zhuo, especially later on. But he's the overall commander of this like coalition to go and fight the Yellow Turbans, or he's one of the major commanders. But we also have a young man named Cao Cao who's involved in it, and another guy named Liu Bei who's involved in this. These guys are huge names eventually. And there's a fellow named Sun Jian who's involved in this. Now, some of them are more directly involved in the rebellion and fighting the rebellion, but this is kind of the big, oh God, everything's going to hell in China moment for these people, like for their generation.
This would be, they'd write the Hamilton musical.
Yes.
For this moment.
For this moment. Okay. At least at this time, because it starts getting really crazy after this. But up until then, this is like the big thing that's happened in China for a while, because it spread everywhere. It started out with just a small band, and then suddenly, hundreds of thousands of people are flocking to this concept, and they're starting to throw down the bureaucracy and overthrow like the administration buildings and small garrisons, and eventually these turn into big battles. So a lot of these guys who eventually become more famous later on earn the respect of the emperor and the respect of their fellows and their contemporaries during this conflict. It doesn't last a really, really long time because it's not terribly well organized, and there are very few actual military professionals with the Yellow Turbans, but they are fanatically loyal and just everywhere. So it's hard to stamp them out. Eventually they are crushed pretty savage.
Oh, okay.
And they lose. And Dong Zhuo, earned some respect and some acclaim during that.
So he was fighting against the Yellow Turbans.
Yeah, it was pretty much everybody against the Yellow Turbans at this time.
That's how rebellions work.
Yeah, and
rebellions don't work with the majority of people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. Good point. Especially not the failed ones.
Right. Sure.
Not the failed ones, at least. The failed ones are, but there weren't. It was kind of you don't sit out of this fight. It doesn't matter where you are in China. This is a problem, and it will get to you. And if you don't handle it now, it's going to get worse.
Yeah.
So they had to put down this rebellion, and it kind of united a lot of these guys. Yuan Shao makes friends during this. Dong Zhuo does not. It's not necessarily that he was in conflict with everyone. He's just not a big name at the time. But Yuan Shao is like related to like a line of the emperor's line. So he thinks very highly of himself. He's a very arrogant man, but he's wealthy and he's powerful, so he just decides to make more friends. He's going to come back in a little bit. So don't forget
Yuan Shao.
Yuan Shao. So as this is all going on, the emperor of the time is Emperor Ling. He is well respected. He's been in power about 20 years. He's the 12th emperor of his dynasty. Does a good job.
Sure.
People like him.
We're going to do a quick diversion, though. Now, what sort of system do they have going on in China with the emperor? Is there an emperor and then a government of some sort? Or
that's a good question. So the emperor has like a series of advisors that work under him, an administration that work under him. He's got final say on everything, and usually is the one dictating terms to everybody. But things are... It's interesting at this time, especially because the emperor has a little less power than he used to. He has kind of a clique of administrators.
Okay.
They're called the 10 Attendants. They're all eunuchs, which is...
Is that a prerequisite for the job, or do you get the job
and
then...
I don't know.
You'll get fitted for your uniform.
These look a little snug. They won't be.
I didn't want this job that badly.
It might be. It could have been like Maybe he just didn't want his advisors to possibly woo his wife.
I'm sure there's a good reason for it.
I don't know if there's ever a really good reason to just snip off.
I'm sure there's a control reason for it.
As a job.
I'm sure there's a reason.
Yes, there is a reason. I don't know exactly what it was. Okay. Or maybe they just all happened to have lost their parts in unhappy accidents and then became best friends. That's the least likely option. But yeah, so there's this clique of them, and
what are they called again?
The 10 Attendants.
10 Attendants. I'm gonna learn a little bit more about eunuchs.
Yeah,
because a
lot of cultures seem to use them.
Yeah, I know, and I've always just kind of glossed over as well. Yes, of course they would.
Yeah,
but I've never really went thought of. Well, at some point they got the job. Did they have the job? Like, you're a eunuch. What do you want to do? Well, you know what I can do. I can be one of the 10 attendants. Oh, that's good.
There you go. Or
hey,
if you want this job.
Good news, bad news, honey.
Yeah, I got the job. We're never having kids. Sorry.
All right. Eunuchs. I will write down with a question mark.
Yep. EU.
Oh, EU.
Yeah, it's the EUNICH.
Eunuchs? Question mark.
Why? What?
I mean, I can't imagine that job's gonna be real good for me to voluntarily do that.
Yeah. Well, and these guys have a lot of power, and some people.
It's got to be a lot.
Yeah, it's got to be a lot, like a lot of power.
No,
yeah.
No, what all goes into eunuching yourself? But
don't know why.
You gotta. That's a hard sell.
But yeah, so this group of guys, they don't like run things, but they're kind of a clique within the government.
Sure.
And they have a lot
of. Who else are they gonna be friends with?
Right. Yeah. Right. So they're ministers under the emperor. And then he's
certainly not Dong. They will not be friends.
They aren't. They are definitely not.
No, I could imagine.
I didn't actually put that hilarity.
Strong feelings towards Dong.
They do, and they don't like him. And Dong, for good reason, does not like eunuchs. That's no good.
Nope, that's a good sentence too. All right.
So, the emperor, though, he's relying more and more on some of his different advisors, and this isn't going over super well with some of his generals, because that's the other branch of his government that is very important, are generals.
Yeah.
They command the military, and the military, this is a professional military. This is not there are conscripts, but they do have, like, professional trained fighting units, very similar to like modern militaries. They have guys who specialize in different techniques. They have cavalry divisions, and it's not like how the Romans did things where you had to join the military with like outfitting your own stuff. The government had systems for all this stuff to arm and equip everybody in a uniform fashion. Swords and spears and bows, horses and fodder and wagon trains, all this stuff. They had it all figured out.
You're excited there. You get really excited.
I get excited about the military stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Get excited about organized military. Yay.
Okay.
Anyway. So they have this system in place. So that's, again, another reason why you want to rise through the ranks. If you get to be general, you get to say what goes on in the country. You get to kind of run things. You also usually end up getting an estate. Big chunk of land to either retire on or just live on. It also provides revenue because you have farms, and farming is super important in any society, especially back then. That's why China grew so fast. They were like, rice is awesome, and we can make a ton of it.
It's awesome.
And,
hey guys, rice is awesome. Have you tried this stuff?
If you can feed a lot of people, you can have a lot of people.
Yeah.
If you can't feed a lot of people, you're not going to have a lot of people.
Facts.
It's a really stupid thing to have to state, but that's why they grew so fast and were able to have such a large country and have so many people, is they have places that are just fantastic for farming, especially rice. So, and they nailed how to do it well, and like they had like organization on how to do it, as opposed to I just dig this hoe and I make a thing in the ground and I fill it with a potato or whatever that was going on in other parts of the world. This was like, there is a system and this is how we're going to do it.
Yeah, okay.
And everybody kind of did it the same way, and it worked really well. So Dong Zhuo does not like the eunuchs, and when, for many reasons...
that'll never not be funny, though.
That will never not be funny. And when Emperor Ling dies, his eldest surviving son is supposed to become emperor. His eldest son is 13.
Oh, okay.
He's not really equipped to run things. Now,
They've had younger, though,
They
right?
have had younger.
Right.
And throughout history, before that, after that,
There's
have
a
been
movie
younger.
about one.
Yeah, there's lots of baby kings throughout history.
Baby Kings.
And sometimes it goes really well, and sometimes it doesn't. Now, the problem is...
Baby Kings, by the way, is the name of my ska band. Baby Kings.
That's a good name.
Yep.
That's a good name. You're
We
welcome.
play New Orleans. The Baby Kings.
The Baby Kings down in New Orleans.
I am not focused on this at all.
Not remotely,
This is
but
going
it's
great.
This is great. We're having a good time. That's what matters. I deliberately took very few notes on
I was
this.
going to say, also, he's got less notes.
Because I can talk about all the things.
Sure.
We always know when Will knows what's going on about a subject by less notes.
Yeah, all right.
It's just to make sure I focus. I have to write down dates sometimes, but otherwise, if it's something I know a lot about, I'll be like, I don't even need notes today.
All right, so Ling died of natural
Emperor Ling
causes.
dies. Natural causes, nothing
13-year-old
nefarious.
kid.
This kid's like, I gotta run things. The 10 attendants basically start running the show.
Sure, why wouldn't they?
Immediately are like,
You gonna trust these 10 guys without
Young master,
genitalia
you
or the
live-
13-year-old who's exploding with hormones?
This is how you must run the country.
I just feel like they're eunuch versions of Emperor Palpatine, right? They're just,
Oh, good, yes, dark side.
Sure, that's their voice.
that's
but
all of them. That's how I imagine evil administrator eunuchs all talk.
Sure.
Yes.
I
Even
think-
if they're Chinese.
I think they're way off on that, but that's all right.
I don't know, and you can't prove me
That's
wrong.
true, I cannot.
No one can.
That's true.
Because they're all dead. This was 1800
I bet we
years
could
ago.
prove you wrong.
Probably.
They can dig dinosaur bones and figure out the vocal pattern based on the skull aperture. They'll be able. They can figure out how people sounded in China.
Fine. It would probably be more like, oh, yes, good, you're going to die.
Yes, there we go.
They're castratis.
Yes, but in Chinese.
But in Chinese.
Wow.
And I'm not going to do that because it's just going to sound really racist.
Yep.
So I'm not going to do it. So when the 10 attendants start taking control of the whole government,
Yeah.
Dong Zhuo has some concerns.
Yep. Can imagine.
And one of the general in chief at the time is He Jin, and He Jin is not a fan either. He thinks these guys are trouble. He has had to work with them for a while, and especially as the chief general, he's been seeing them slowly try to take things over, and the way that they're controlling this kid is really bad. So He Jin sends a message to Dong Zhuo, says, you need to come to Luoyang, which is the capital. It's the seat of imperial power.
Oh, okay.
And he says, this needs to stop. We're getting rid of these guys.
Is this now that was the capital, or is it the current capital, or is it get burned down? Like it's burned down.
It's going to get burned.
What's the current capital of
China?
China?
Beijing.
Beijing. So this is not.
This is not Beijing.
Them.
No.
That's
A lot of China has they've really distanced themselves from like their past. That's part of their modern worldview is the past is very different because that was imperial, that was a monarchy, and we're done with that. We're not gonna. They talk about their past. They're very passionate about their past.
Sure, yeah.
But they don't really latch on to it a lot. Like there's a lot of like culturally Chinese things that you don't see as much. It's much more common in Taiwan because Taiwan is based largely on the old monarchy. And that's their huge difference is Taiwan believes that the monarchy should still be in power. They lost the Civil War and they all ran away to Taiwan.
Oh.
And that's why there's this huge rift. So if you want to see like traditional Chinese culture, you go to Taiwan.
Interesting.
Mostly.
Okay.
If you want to see what China's like nowadays, then you go to Beijing.
Okay.
Or Shanghai is a really good place to visit for that. I don't recommend visiting anywhere right now because there's a plague.
You know, if you donate money to this thing, then we can call this a job, and then we can travel to China
And we can do research.
and do it as a business expense.
Yes.
So
We'll get better at research.
all I need is one person to donate a little bit of money. And I can
Yes.
say yes.
Yep.
All right, sorry.
Like $4.
$4, that's it.
$4 and we're flying to China. Gotta get...
I can probably justify it.
I think
That's
we can
fine.
figure out.
All right,
It's supposed to be a cool place to travel to.
that's good.
It's got all this history. I'm a big history nerd. That's this whole thing.
That's a good life goal.
Yeah, travel to.
Make this show successful
Makes it
enough
so we can
that
travel.
it makes sense for us to travel.
I like that.
Right
I
now,
like
there's no
that.
reason for
And
us to
then we
travel.
could do a remote show
Yeah.
whilst traveling. Like, here we are. It's History with Mike and Will in Rome, in Beijing, in
Probably Europe somewhere, I imagine.
a lot more in Europe.
Yeah.
Just because you can just kind of wander around once you get there. There's a lot more little
That's
countries. It's a lot easier. China would be like, it took us 6 years to get through all the big parts of China. It's huge. Plus, they're a little more restrictive of Western travelers.
Oh, sure.
Probably. You know?
And
Not
sure,
that I've been.
difficult
I
for
don't
us to blend in.
Yeah. Big guys, very loud. And be like,
Well,
what are you filming again? History.
all right.
Sounds like propaganda to us.
So,
And then they kick us out.
Dong is headed to
Luoyang.
Luoyang.
Luoyang. Yes.
The capital of then.
Of China.
Is it capital?
Basically, what it is it's a system of palaces
Okay.
that the administrative center is run out of. It's not so much like a classical city where it's, that's where all the peasantry live and stuff. It's not like that, really. But there's a lot of people here. There's a lot of them.
Yeah.
It's all the administrators, all their families, there's thousands of soldiers, there's the eunuchs. But it's the center of all of their administration.
Is
throughout
it,
this
where is it
massive
in,
empire.
do you know where it is in China? Is it central? Can we look on the map? Would it be on the map?
Roughly.
Is it centralized? Do you know?
It's so most of the Chinese settlements are not. They're less inland. They're closer to the coast.
Yeah,
it is
that makes
along
sense.
a major river. Let's see if we can find it.
We can look. We can look on the map. That map is. I don't know when that map is from.
Even though it burns, it's not like everything went away.
We can tell quick. Is there a Soviet Union on there first, and then all right. Yep. So it's
This is old.
It's an older map. It's got this Soviet Union on there, so it's at least from the 80s. Just taking a look at where we're in China. We're in China.
Oh, wait, no.
Luoyang is. Do you know roughly where it is?
Roughly. I think it's... Where are you? It might not be listed because it's not very big anymore.
Oh.
It's along one of their major rivers.
Okay.
I think it's along the Yangtze River.
Look at
I'm
that.
having problems finding it.
Well, tell you what. I'm gonna
There
try
it is.
this. I'm gonna try this magic thing. We got the globe, but I'm gonna try this. We're gonna put up a map right here.
And we're gonna say
Ooh.
that's where it is.
Where it is.
Once
Yeah.
we find it.
Anyway,
Anyway,
there's China,
that's China.
and somewhere on the
Where is
on
this?
the coast, somewhere on the coast.
Like Varish.
There-ish. Okay.
But the actual map will make
I knew
it
this
better.
would come in handy.
It's gonna be.
It's a travel globe, by the way. You stick it in your valise. And take along on the trip.
Like our trip that we will go on.
I'm bringing the travel globe just so we don't get lost.
Yep. Where are we now?
Check the globe.
It only has 4 cities in each country. We don't know where we are. This is not helping. Okay, so He Jin needs assistance, so he calls the general of the vanguard to come assist him clearing house. Like, they need to get rid of the eunuchs and all the eunuchs guards that they might use, and they need to save the young emperor.
Oh, so they want to.
They want to save the emperor.
So
they don't want to depose the emperor. They just know the eunuchs are bad.
Right. Okay.
Well, the eunuchs find out about
Well,
this,
sure.
and they immediately assassinate He
Oh
Jin.
no, that's not the result.
They
we
grab
wanted.
the general and hang him publicly
Oh.
as a traitor. Then they grab his brother.
The general, the guy,
He Jin.
He Jin.
Yep, they have him
Oh,
killed.
this is
They
going
also
bad.
kill his brother. And
What was he doing?
he's just in the wrong place at the wrong
Ah,
time. His
that's
own soldiers rise up and murder him.
Wow.
To be like, look, we're not involved in this.
Well, this
at
plan
all."
fell apart real quick.
It did. Dong Zhuo doesn't find out about this until he's
No.
already on the way. And he's like, this isn't great.
No.
But because of this problem, the eunuchs want to flee the city.
Oh, after
They're like, so we killed this guy, there's an army coming, people are mad. Let's
Yeah.
grab the emperor and go.
Oh, so they didn't kill the emperor.
No, they didn't kill the emperor.
Oh, okay.
The emperor's okay. The emperor's okay. I was surprised too. I was like, things are going wrong. Let's kill. Nope. They use this all to legitimize their rule.
Okay.
We're just defending the emperor. That's why we killed the general.
Okay.
So they grab the 13-year-old emperor and run away directly into Dong Zhuo's army. Whoops. Dong Zhuo, apparently what he does is he recruits a young officer who works for a local warlord who's loyal to the eunuchs.
Okay.
I believe the lord's name is Wu Zhan, I think. The young officer's name is Lu Bu.
Lu Bu.
Lu Bu is the most famous warrior in Chinese history.
Ooh.
He was legendary for being, they refer to him as having like the strength of a tiger.
Ooh.
He was very strong. He was ruthless and ferocious. Unfortunately, he had the temperament to go with that.
Oh, yeah.
He was volatile and not trustworthy because the second Dong Zhuo asks him to join him, he betrays his master and kills him and then goes and joins Dong Zhuo.
Oh.
He becomes his personal attack dog and adopted son.
Okay.
But before all of that happens, one of the first things he does is he sends him to reclaim the prince, the emperor.
Okay.
So Lu Bu leads the contingent
Mhm.
and kills the eunuchs
I gotta say, it's really tough to trust somebody.
who just killed his boss.
Yeah.
Yep.
like, yeah, you want me to join you?
This is the beginning.
don't call
of
me your boss.
This is the beginning of a pattern for Lu Bu.
yeah.
Because he's exceptionally strong, and famous for it.
It's like someone
It's
who marries somebody whose last 5 husbands died mysteriously. Oh, well, I'll
It'll
give
be
it a shot.
fine. It'll be fine. To be fair, I think that this is the first recorded time he betrayed somebody. But you never trust a traitor, no
Right.
matter who
Yeah.
they are.
No, if they're willing
no
to
matter
do it.
why. They're
Yeah.
a traitor.
Yeah.
So it's like you were willing to switch once.
Yep.
Why? What's the big shift? And
Okay.
are you going to do it
Please
again?
don't do it for
Yeah,
me.
please don't betray me. And especially not this guy.
Yeah.
Because he's a monster. Like, he's very...
Yeah.
He's famous for just being good at killing people.
The tiger.
Yeah,
He's great.
he was called the Flying General because he was just lightning fast in battle. He had this horse called Red Hare, which had a reddish. It was hare as in H-A-R
Yeah, yeah.
or H-A-R-E, so like a rabbit.
Oh, okay.
And it was this lightning fast red horse. It's
So
like
how do you spell Lu Bu's name?
L-U-B-U.
Oh,
Two little dots above the first one. Lu.
Mhm.
L-U-B-U. No blurb. It's not actually pronounced Lu Bu. It's like Liu Bu, I think. But it's
Yeah.
the tone's really difficult for me to. I tried to.
There's a Chinese. It sounds like they're swallowing the vowels.
Yep. And
it's just
it's
a
a very
different-
complex tonal sound that unless
Yeah.
you actually work at it for a really long time, because I
Yeah.
tried to do that before we did this to pronounce everybody's name properly, and I just said I'm
Well,
going to do the Anglicanized version
yeah.
because that's going to sound, I think, probably be less wrong and offensive because they'll just go, oh, you're just doing the Western version of it as
Yeah.
opposed to saying a completely wrong thing.
We're right.
And butchering
Well,
the
and I
pronunciation.
mean, it's
You don't want to do that.
we will do our best. We're not trying to mock anyone,
No.
but
No.
there are certain words and stuff that if you weren't brought up in that culture, you just can't even hear the difference.
You can't hear the difference. And I was listening to it. Fortunately, online you can look up pronunciations of things. Even in Wikipedia, which is kind of cool. They added a lot
Yeah.
to that, which is a great resource as a launching point. I always like Wikipedia as a good launching point of, okay, here's some information. Now we delve a little deeper. We start looking into chronicles.
There you
and, more books because they have to cite sources. So you
Hear
just
that,
look at their
kids?
sources. It's
Wikipedia
wonderful.
is only the starting
It's a
point.
starting point. Don't
finish
get all
it.
your information there. That's not enough detail.
I mean, depending on how much of a rush you're in.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, there's at least been one episode where I've been like, I don't know anything else. Wikipedia.
All right.
But so Lu Bu is used as this attack dog. He hunts down the eunuchs. He saves the emperor.
Okay.
Brings him back to Dong Zhuo. Now it's not really clear if he killed all the eunuchs on the spot.
But we don't hear from them again?
Never hear of him again. What
Alright,
is likely is he runs them down and kills them all.
Oh, boy.
So all 10 attendants are now dead.
Okay.
It's also not clear if it's just him doing the chasing down and murdering.
Oh, okay. He might have a team.
He might have a team.
Might have a
It's
squad.
just written as Dong Zhuo sent Lu Bu to do this thing.
And he got things done.
succeeded.
Okay.
Because Lu Bu is great at getting stuff done when you send him to do a thing.
Yeah.
If he's in charge, it never goes well for him. He's not a good leader because
Oh,
he's
interesting.
too irrational
Okay.
and he doesn't trust anybody because he himself is
Sure,
not
sure.
trustworthy.
Right.
So Dong Zhuo takes the emperor and goes to the city, and everyone's like, "Yay! He saved the day!" And he immediately makes him his puppet.
Who makes who's
Dong Zhuo immediately makes the emperor his puppet.
Oh.
Immediately. He lets the emperor sit on the throne for less than 5 months and then deposes him and installs his younger brother, who's 3, to be the new
Emperor's younger
emperor.
brother. Oh,
He gets rid of the emperor.
okay. How old is the emperor at this time? It's still like 13?
He's still 13, yeah.
Oh,
It's like his total reign is 5 months.
okay.
That's all he gets. And basically it's The eunuchs are yelling at him. Dong Zhuo shows up like the hero
Yep.
and steals the throne. He makes himself, what did he call himself? The Grand Preceptor. That was his title he gives himself. Right before, and also the Chancellor of the State right before that. So he's
Do you think that was his plan all along, or do you
It's
think he
hard to tell.
got him there and was like, "We'll work with you"?
Since
and
I'm here.
I can't work with this guy.
well, because the thing is, he didn't have He Jin to tell him what to do, and that was
Yeah.
the general. That was the top general.
yeah,
He just absorbs that guy's army and that guy's brother's army. So now he's got the biggest army in the city. He has the reins to power, and he just takes them. So it's not sure whether it was a scheme overall
Right.
for him to do this, if he had a plan that if given the opportunity, this is what I'm going to do. He definitely was not going to show up with his like 3,000 men and do this if He Jin had still been alive. Because He Jin had a much larger army, and he had the respect of all the soldiers.
Yep.
It's surprising that he was killed even because of how respected he was and how high ranking he was. But the eunuchs made it look like this was treason against the emperor, not against them.
right.
So that's how they were able to get away with it. Now, so Dong Zhuo would not have had a chance, but he's got this opportunity and he seizes it.
Eee.
He ousts the emperor and he makes him the prince then, and
Okay.
then he makes the prince the emperor. Little 3-year-old kid.
Okay, so but he didn't kill the emperor.
Not yet.
Just- oh,
Because
Spoilers.
not long later, he has the prince poisoned
Oh.
in exile. Like he sends him away and has him killed out of public light.
That would be the way to do it.
Yes.
I don't want to tell you how to get rid of your emperors, but
But don't do it on the throne.
right, yeah.
Replace them
Get him.
and then kill them.
It's like saying, hey, he went to a farm. He lives at a farm upstate.
Yep, we sent
from
the
us.
emperor, to, and they
really nice.
they literally did that.
He's running around,
he's
so
running
happy
free,
in the
he's
fields.
so happy in the fields playing, and oh, he got sick and died.
Yep.
Of what? Poison. A lot of poison.
All right.
So many poisons. A number of exotic
All
poisons.
right. No poor.
Poor Emperor Liu Bian.
Didn't even know your name.
Yep, Liu Bian.
The
That was his
son of
name.
Emperor Ling.
So his brother Liu Shi,
Mm-hmm.
Xie, so it's probably like Xie, I think is how it's actually pronounced. He becomes the emperor, but he's 3. He can barely speak. He has no say. They've literally just referred to him as the infant emperor. His formal title is, I think it's like Emperor Shao, and that means like child. It's like child emperor.
Yep.
That's his, and it becomes a title that's used for a very long time because
They keep
they
picking-
keep having child emperors. So they're like, look at emperor, look at emperor.
Yeah.
Shao doesn't die.
Ever?
The little emperor. He does not die until he's old.
Oh, okay.
He lives a long life,
But not as emperor.
but not as emperor.
Let's
Not
find
for
out.
all of it, because there's a period without an emperor.
Yeah.
I think well, he doesn't live a long life, but I think he lives to be 40 or 50, which isn't super long, but it's not super short. Now, what happens with all of this though is we go back to Yuan Shao, the famous general guy who fought the Yellow Turbans.
Yeah.
He's pissed. Like, this is the greatest of, like, he sees this as the ultimate betrayal. The Dong Zhuo, yeah, and they're like, yeah, you got rid of the eunuchs, those guys, and you immediately did the same thing that they were doing. Oh, and then you ousted the child emperor, and then you killed him. So much mad.
Yeah.
He basically rallies all his buddies from the Yellow Turban Rebellion days
Okay.
and forms this massive army. So he goes to the 3 most famous generals of the time. He talks to Liu Bei, who is kind of famous as this man of the people. He's like a lord who lives amongst the peasants. He's extremely well respected. He's considered like one of the most charismatic leaders of his time. And he's got these 2 famous brothers. Well, they're 3 sworn brothers, these 3 guys. It's Liu Bei, his buddies Zhang Fei, and Guan Yu. Guan Yu is so famous for being a warrior that he ascended to godhood. He is considered a war god.
Wow.
That's how famous he got. They worshipped him in small shrines across China ever since then. So this is how famous this guy is.
Okay.
He's also created a weapon that is used in Chinese martial arts now to this day, and he's the
Really?
first guy who used it. It's called a Dao, which is also called a Guan Dao properly. It's a spear with a blade that's, I'm getting the frame here, like that long and then curved. So it's got this giant curved blade.
You think we can find a picture of that?
We can. We're going to put it right there. And it's a really fascinating like martial arts style that's used to fight. It has a big counterweight on the end of it. His, according to legend, is impossibly heavy. It's like 120-pound spear, basically. So that's probably not right, because the size and strength required to use something like that is insane, and there's absolutely no reason for it. Like, there's no purpose in having a monstrously heavy weapon like that. A 20-pound spear thing is terrifying enough, because if you're a big guy and you can swing that much around, you're going to cut through whatever you try to hit. So Guan Yu is very famous as well. And then the other guys that get linked to this that Yuan Shao finds is Sun Jian. He's the Tiger of the South.
Ooh.
Very famous general, really well respected, tough guy. Also, he's a great military leader. He's got this kind of creative mind when it comes to like attacks. He's good at ambushes and strategic maneuvering, and then using good.
Now, all these guys were involved in the Yellow Turban Rebellion.
Were all involved in the Yellow Turban Rebellion, and the last one is Cao Cao. Cao Cao is possibly one of China's most famous characters too. He is a brilliant strategist.
Well, they can't all be the most famous.
That's true. You have Lu Bu, who's the most famous warrior.
Okay. They're all famous in their different ways.
It's famous in different ways.
Okay.
But Cao Cao is very famous for he has this very cunning diplomatic mind where he can kind of move people like pieces on a chessboard.
Okay.
It's not great. Like there's this moral gray area with how Cao Cao does things, but he's a brilliant administrator. Great strategist. He's good at moving things around, figuring out how to like supply armies and all this other stuff.
Sure.
So Yuan Shao builds this coalition. It's just called like the Grand Coalition.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, "This is awesome. We are gonna crush this Dong Zhuo guy." And Dong Zhuo is understandably terrified. He's like, "Well, I got Lu Bu, and I have the capital.
Oh boy.
And I have the emperor, but that's a lot of really angry people.
I may have pushed things too far.
I might have done a bad."
Okay, let's find out how it happens.
So Dong Zhuo, rather than try to fight these guys in the field, he gathers everything he can. He loots the ancestral tombs of previous Han emperors.
Well, that I'm sure will go over well with everyone.
He steals treasure. He takes all of the necessary paperwork. He takes the imperial seal. He takes everything that he can and burns the rest of the capital down.
Burn it all.
So that happens on April 9th.
So he himself...
He destroys the seat of power rather than let the coalition get it. Right. And then he flees to his fortress, which I think was Luoyang, I think it is, which is further west down the Yangtze River. And he's like, "Come at me now." And he fortifies himself. He builds up his walls and his defenses. He gathers an army. He sets food aside to withstand like a 30-year siege. He goes all out. And the coalition...
I'm sorry, let's go back to the burning.
Yeah.
So, other people are there.
Oh, yeah.
Were they on board with the burning?
No.
Or how badly were they not on board with the burning?
So he grabs all the people that he feels are loyal to him. So he's got Lu Bu, he's got a lot of his army, but just torches the place. So there's all these administrators and employees and their families and stuff. They're just running around like wildly trying to put out the fire, basically.
Okay.
So... most of them are not too pleased by this. And they burn the majority of the city to the ground. By the time the coalition army gets there, like, "Are you serious?" They basically get there seeing smoke in the distance, like, "I have no idea what happened. We haven't even started the war.
Wow.
What's going on?" They show up, and it's burning to the ground. And they're like, "This is what happened?" And they're like, "Dong Zhuo burned the city rather than let you guys have it. He has the emperor with him, and he's hiding over there."
Good job, Dong.
Good job. Well, it's the line from Predator where it says they're dug in like an Alabama tick. They are. You got to watch Predator. It's a great movie. Jesse Ventura says.
I watched it when it first came out.
Oh, you should watch it again.
So what was that? 85?
Tops. Yeah, like 85. I think maybe 87ish.
So I was like younger.
Good.
Anyway,
I was little. But yeah, so he's entrenched in his position though. This is a kind of a mighty fortress kind of a concept. It's hard to assail from any direction. He's got troops. He's got tons of food. It's unassailable without massive casualties, and also the risk to the emperor, because at any time he can just throw the baby off the cliff if he wants to.
Sure.
And he's basically like you guys really want to play this game?
Don't mess with me. I'm crazy.
I'm crazy.
I'll do it.
You know, he's standing up there like Michael Jackson with the baby, just look at my son. Kind of a. It's not great. This is not an ideal situation.
No.
So they have to come up with a way to deal with Dong Zhuo. They start talking to a guy that Lu Bu really respects.
Okay.
And this guy sends a message to Lu Bu. If you take care of this,
take care of it,
you will receive wealth and land, and we will forgive any connecting crimes that you have for working with Dong.
Now, I assume Lu Bu said, no, I'm a man of honor. I will never betray the person I work for.
In the Romance of the Three Kingdoms, which is the romantic version of what happened, so they have the record of the Three Kingdoms, and then they have the Romance of the Three Kingdoms. That's how this. It's kind of cool. They made a historical fiction back in the 12th. I think it's like 1200s, like 1250. I think is when the Romance of the Three Kingdoms was written. And it's this very famous long book. It's been made into movies, video games. The Dynasty Warriors video games are based on it. So
that's like still roughly factual.
Yes, the events took place. The how is different. It's kind
more,
of like
more romanticized.
Yeah, it's romanticized. Okay. In the romantic version of this,
no one gets hurt and everyone gets.
Oh no, everybody still dies.
Oh, okay.
It's just more fancy. But like, for example, an invented female character named is Dao Chan is sent to seduce first Dong Zhuo and then seduce Lu Bu by her father.
Okay.
And then when she seduces Lu Bu to make him kill Dong Zhuo, that's what happens there.
A little sexual intrigue.
A little intrigue, yes. Yes. So that's the romantic version. What actually happened, though, is there was apparently some kind of parlay with Lu Bu to get him to do this, or he just had enough. Because it's not super clear how this went, because he did have some other like generals and stuff that he respected. He didn't like Yuan Shao. He thought the guy was an arrogant jerk.
Yep.
He respected, though, other warriors, and for whatever reason, he takes out Dong Zhuo. He murders him straight up by himself. Just kind of walks into the throne room.
Who does, Lu Bu?
And kills him. Yeah, Lu Bu switches sides.
Surprise!
Unsurprisingly,
I'm not surprised
at all. Walks in and murders Dong Zhuo.
I imagine even Dong Zhuo was like, I'm not surprised.
Yeah, and the crazy thing too is this is his son. Lu Bu was adopted by Dong Zhuo. He was his heir at this time. Yeah. And he's like, nope, I see the writing on the wall, and you're a jerk. Murders him.
Yeah. Right.
So there goes Dong Zhuo.
To the surprise of no one.
To the surprise of exactly 0 people, except Dong Zhuo, because if he did,
I think he was momentarily surprised, but still was like, oh, no.
Yeah, I should have seen this coming. Right. This is dumb. Dang it. So Lu Bu basically opens the gates to the castle. He's like, I did it. I killed Dong Zhuo. Here's his head.
Ooh.
Really? I believe he brought out the head because he's like, hey,
yeah, that is
surrender.
That is a way to prove.
I'm on your side.
Yeah.
And then he brings forth the emperor, and everybody is like, yes, this is wonderful.
That's what we wanted.
Saved the emperor. Huzzah. Doesn't go down like that.
Oh, no.
The problem that happens with Dong Zhuo dying and Luoyang being destroyed is now, who's running the emperor? Because he's 3.
Yes.
Who's in charge of looking out for him?
We have no more eunuchs.
Yep. The eunuchs are all gone.
A kid.
The top general in the country's dead. The chancellor is dead, because that was Dong Zhuo.
Yep.
None of us are really in charge. We're in charge of our own little states.
Okay.
So who should be running things?
Is there some receptionist somewhere going, oh, no, it's me?
Yeah. I don't want the job. And they all decide they're going to be the guy who runs the country.
Well, that's how it would work.
And China splits into 3 separate states. This becomes the start of what's called the Warring States period. Okay. It's the 3 kingdoms. That's what the whole Romance of the Three Kingdoms, the record of the 3 kingdoms. They're split between Wei, Wu, and Shu. That's the different leaders. Liu Bei runs one of them.
Yep.
Cao Cao runs another, and Sun Jian runs another one.
Oh, so this team together, they can't figure
they fracture almost immediately after
once there's a power vacuum.
Because there's this power vacuum, yeah. And Yuan Shao's like, I'm the boss, obviously. I mean, look how fancy I am. I have royal line, and they're like, no.
Probably should have discussed this on the ride over to
exactly. They hadn't quite.
Luoyang.
expected this fallout because now the Han Empire is not really existing anymore. The Emperor's 3.
Yep.
He has no say over anything. So Yuan Shao and his family basically claim control of the Emperor, and this makes these 3 other guys really mad.
Yeah.
And they all basically say, well, I should run it, and I'm going to take over China so that I can do this. So this event here starts the biggest civil war in Chinese history, up until like the modern period when there was like the Communist Revolution, and that was the next big civil war.
Sure.
But up until that point, this is the big one, and it's been written about for more than 1,000 years. There's books, there's video games, there's dozens of movies. There's all of this stuff that culminates into the death of this empire and the rise of a new imperial family after
one guy did
generations
this,
of
basically.
and yeah, because if Dong Zhuo hadn't done what he did, and then burned the capital to the ground and destroyed the seat of power, and then kind of left this vacuum, this probably would not have happened. So the emperor basically gets kicked around, not really physically or anything like that, but it all becomes about who controls the emperor.
Yeah.
Like Sun Jian has, like, he ends up with the imperial seal. He's like the keeper of the imperial seal.
I thought you meant the emperor. He is still.
He's got him. He gets his little baby.
He's a little baby.
No, but he ends up with like the jade seal of office for the
cool.
empire, and he's like, well, I have this, so that gives me some authority.
Sure.
But he's more focused because he's in the south. The south is crazy. South China is crazy at this time because it borders basically like Vietnam and all of these Southeast Asian countries that are not friendly with China.
Yeah.
Now, in the Romance of the Three Kingdoms, they're described as like barbarian hordes and all this other stuff, which is probably super inaccurate.
Strange how your enemies are
Always the barbarian hordes, right? But no, so there's rival kingdoms in the south, and that's his job. He's like the warden of the south. That's his job, is to protect the south.
That is Cao Cao?
That's Sun Jian.
Sun Jian.
Yes. Cao Cao is kind of more central.
Okay.
And then Liu Bei is like in like northeast China.
It must be north, yeah.
Yeah. So these 3 kingdoms just wind up just beating the snot out of each other for, I think, like 40 or 50 years.
Wow.
It's a generational war.
Too bad. They were friends.
Right. So, like, Sun Jian, eventually, he is killed in an ambush. So he actually doesn't last very long into the Three Kingdoms period. Yep. His son, Sun Ce, takes over. And Sun Ce is a remarkable warrior. He's fiery. He's talented. He gets sick, and then he dies.
Nope.
And the younger brother, Sun Quan, winds up running the thing, and he becomes an emperor. Like, he becomes a big dog in this fight.
Oh.
Liu Bei, I think he's the first guy to kind of fall out of the race, because he's in charge of like this people's. It's almost similar to like a people's rebellion. The people all support him. They love this guy. He sees his group as like the true Han. Resurgent empire.
Okay.
Like, he sees them as what's called a rump state. They're the leftovers of the actual Han Empire. So that's what he sees them as. And that's their responsibility, is to bring back the empire. He has no design to be king.
Okay.
That is not his plan. And then there's Cao Cao, who is this brilliant administrator guy, and he wants the throne. And eventually, after all of these years of fighting, you have these massive battles where generals are lost and people win and people lose, and there's setbacks and all of this. The different factions kind of work together at different points. And Lu Bu's there for quite a bit of it, but always bouncing between different leaders, of course.
Oh, sure.
So there's a chunk of time where it's like a 2-year span where I think it's, what was it? It was either Liu Biao, I think was his name. He's not related to Liu Bei. They're not related at all. I think he was in charge. Somebody claimed the throne for like 2 years.
Of the...
Oh, it's Yuan Shu. Yuan Shao's brother, I think.
Of all of China? Or
claims the throne of China. He says, I'm in charge now.
Yeah.
He's like,
That's all it took, just to say
I'm the new emperor.
Okay.
Lu Bu throws in with him.
Because, of course
he does. Because he's given land. He's like, here, you can become this marquis of this land over here.
His own thing.
And he's like, fine, I'll do that. That sounds great. And then Liu Bei shows up and says, don't work for him. He goes, okay, I'll work for you instead. And he switches sides.
Man, I wouldn't trust this guy as far as I could throw him.
Then he eventually winds up working after Yuan Shu is ousted. He goes and works for him again.
Sure.
And so the coalition finally, we're sick of this guy.
Yep.
He's a thorn in everybody's side. He just shows up. He switches sides every 5 seconds, and he causes nothing but chaos and carnage wherever he goes. He's a liability.
Yeah.
So, despite their animosity towards each other, I think
We all agree we don't like this
they
guy.
all kind of agree. So the South is kind of doing its own thing, but I believe it's Cao Cao and Liu Bei team up to get to kill Lu Bu. They capture him in his castle. According to one version of the story, is he got drunk
Whoops.
and just passed out. Like until then, he was like fighting on the ramparts and they couldn't really get in, and he was riled up. But he was such a jerk that his men opened the gates. They were sick of his crap, and they capture him. And they have him on his knees, and he's like, "Don't kill me, I'll work for you."
Yeah, we've heard that one before.
And Liu
Lulu.
Bei's basically just standing like, "Don't believe him, it's nonsense, don't believe him."
I mean, he will for a little bit.
And
but then-
Cao Cao's in charge at this point because he's the big dog in the fight. He's like, "No," and he has his head cut off.
One too many times, Lubu.
He's like, you've switched sides like 17 times, and
Fool
every
me.
time.
Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me 20 times. That's your fault.
That's still. It's like he's tricked everybody, so he's
Yeah.
run out of people to trick. I think Cao Cao's the one guy he's never worked directly for. So he's like, "No, I saw how we got to this
figured it
point."
out.
So there are, I think, 2 stories of it. They wouldn't kill him by cutting his head off, I think, because that's what he wanted.
Oh.
He wanted to like die in combat. There's like
Yeah.
a story where he like leapt forward and tried to fight, and then he was like trying to provoke Guan Yu to kill him, and they're like, "Nope, we're gonna hang you
Oh.
like a common criminal."
Oh.
And he was not happy.
Well,
He
you know
was
what?
Not happy.
I'm not
But you
either,
know what?
but
You had it coming, man.
Yeah.
You know, you could have, because he could have gone down as like a superhero.
Sure.
Right? You know, he betrayed this one guy. Yeah, that's not so bad. But then he betrayed the big bad of the time. Because Dong Zhuo is considered one of the great villains of Chinese history for good reason. And Lu Bu killed him. He could have been a hero. He could have lived off of that for the rest of his life, and he could have helped like secure the empire. He could have made himself like the emperor's personal guard.
Sure.
But he had just completely untapped ambition and was unbelievably paranoid because he was a dirty traitor, so he thought everybody else was a dirty traitor. And because of that, he was considered very, very reckless, obviously. He made impetuous choices. He had a bad temper, and that alienated him real, real fast. So it didn't matter that he was the greatest warrior of his time, allegedly.
because now he's dead.
Now he did. Meanwhile, the guy who ends up being, a god of war is Guan Yu, who is famous for, well, like 3 things, actually. Famous for having, apparently, the most amazing beard ever. That's written about in the chronicles. He had such an amazing, giant black beard. It was almost like blue-black, and it's written about in the actual chronicle, not just the romance version of it. There are drawings of these people, but he had this amazing beard. He had this spear thing that he invented.
Oh,
and
yeah, that thing.
his other thing that he's really, really famous for is just his undying loyalty to his sworn brother. He never contemplated ever switching sides. He was offered a job to switch sides. He was offered to go and do all these things, and he was like, "No, this is my brother. I'm never going to leave his side." And he was loyal to Liu Bei until Liu Bei died. And then he was loyal to his kids.
Yeah.
There was a time where he worked for Cao Cao, which is interesting because, these are all the big movers and shakers. Eventually, there's some cross work, there's some cross-pollination of ideas. They don't constantly just build walls around each other and just kill each other. They try to sort things out over time. They try to get things figured out. But in the end, there's a climactic battle at what is called Red Cliff. There's a film about it. I think it's actually Chibi is what it was. Is the proper Chinese title. But they have this massive battle between Cao Cao and basically all of his remaining rivals, and he wins. So Cao Cao winds up on top of all of
Cao
this.
Cao wins.
Cao Cao wins the Three Kingdoms battle. He doesn't get to live long enough to see like a fully unified thing. He dies not from combat. He gets sick, I believe, and dies. But his son, Cao Pi, just Pi,
True.
he winds up as kind of like an emperor of all of China. He's not the full emperor. Eventually, the Cao family is kind of ruled from behind the scenes by this family called the Sima family. Sima Yi is the most famous guy from their group. He was Cao Cao's like top counselor.
Okay.
And eventually, his children kind of like, and then their children kind of run the family from behind. And eventually they just say, you know what? We're in charge. You guys,
We've been doing it.
you guys are not great anymore. Your granddaddy was amazing, but you are not your granddaddy or your daddy or however many generations back it goes. You got to abdicate the throne. Sorry.
Oh.
And they create the Jin dynasty.
Oh,
And
okay.
that is the first full time that there's an emperor. So it goes the Han, then
Nothing for a while.
and then the Jin dynasty.
Oh, there you go.
But none of that would have happened without Dong Zhuo betraying everybody and being like the most opportunistic jerk. And then just, you can't just go around burning capitals to the ground and stealing gits.
It is nice that the most opportunistic fellas in this scenario both got their comeuppance.
They all did. Yep, it is cool, and it's
Satisfying to hear.
What's fascinating about it is that's the historical record. The romantic version is even more dramatic and stylized,
sure.
and fun, but it's not. It's nice that it doesn't do a disservice to the actual history of it, because
Right.
the actual history is dramatic enough. It's fascinating how all of this just kind of aligns properly. But after that, like, these guys are all played as different types. Like some of times Cao Cao is just this demonic villain type character, and other times people are like, well, no, he's just very pragmatic and has this very clear mind about things. Liu Bei is always portrayed as a hero, because there was this huge event where there were like 100,000 people that were peasants, and they needed to get off of their land and escape an army, and he guided them. He protected them. He stayed behind and risked his life to protect his people. So they were like, oh, we don't care what you do. We love you. And they kind of had this nomadic existence for a while. It's a lot of really fascinating stories within the history that I think is just awesome.
Well,
And that's
perhaps
our time.
we'll touch in on those at another time.
Yeah.
But right now,
We're out of it.
he's out of it.
I'm out of time.
So that was Dong Zhao burns down Luoyang.
Luoyang. Yes.
Luoyang.
Luoyang.
And the ramifications thereof.
Yes.
Fascinating stuff.
Fascinating
Well
stuff.
done. So that was this week in history. Next week, we're going to be discussing
The Battle of Culloden,
Battle of Culloden.
which happens in Scotland.
Scotland, April 16th, 1746.
Correct.
I did tell Will I was going to give him a bonus challenge for future this week's in histories. We need to hit all the continents, Will.
Oh, I like it.
So we've hit so far Europe,
A lot of Europe.
A lot of Europe. We've now done
South America.
South
I
America.
almost said South Africa.
We've
That's
done
wrong.
North America.
We've done North America.
We've done.
What do we do in North America?
Surely we've done something, right? In America?
I don't think we did
Just
North
straight up
America.
America?
I don't think we did it. Oh yeah, we did.
never-
We did. We
surely.
did Baron von Steuben.
we
That's
go.
American history.
Yes.
That was Germany
We could-
and America.
We could probably do more
could.
North American history. Well, we've not hit though
Africa,
Africa
not at all, and Australia.
or Antarctica.
And there is There are history things we can do for Antarctica.
There are. So
The March of the Penguins.
that's the new challenge for
I
Will.
like this
and then
challenge.
a later challenge will be to hit like every country as well. We'll work on.
Yeah,
that.
because we really do a lot of bouncing between like Rome and England. Are
Right.
our number.
Well, we work
those
in
are
our
top ones.
wheelhouse first, but we'll
Yep.
we'll expand.
That's a great challenge. I love that. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we don't have a time limit, but at some point we'll. Get to
I'm
work.
gonna do it.
All
I'm
right.
gonna do it.
But that's all for this week. Like and subscribe. Check out the references to what we did.
Yep.
And share this around to other people. Is
Yep. Share it. Share
that what I
it.
normally say? Do I say anything else? I don't think anything.
I don't
else
think we
now.
say anything else.
Alright, good.
We're saying more than we usually do, which is nice. We got a routine going. Only took like 20 episodes.
Who's counting? All right. Thanks for coming. We'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.